Yes, sorry about that. Anyways, welcome to Advance Your Career, a postgraduate scholarship, a step-by-step guide. We are thrilled to have each of you here today. Throughout this event, you can expect to gain tips on how to target schools and scholarships, building a competitive candidate profile, submitting winning applications, and additional resources like websites to find funded projects. Our goal is to equip you with valuable knowledge you can apply long after today's session. At this point, I'd like to invite Mr. Peter to take over.
Okay, yeah, thanks a lot, Anita, for that introduction, and thank you, Anifio, for hosting this also. So, just a little bit about myself. Yeah, so foremost, I'm a PhD student. I'm a chemical and biological engineering student at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, which is America's oldest and one of the world's most renowned engineering universities. Um, so currently I'm in the protein purification and virus bioseparation laboratory. So my research project is into AAV gene therapy bioseparations, like purifying. Uh, Let me use the word proteins generally, right? Or let me say purifying virus and using it for genetic therapeutic purposes. For example, like treating some previously considered incurable diseases like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and the like. But I'm not here to talk about my research. I mean, we're here to talk about grad school. So I can do this all in on talking about my research because I love my research, right? Aside that, I'm privileged to be an NIGMS T32 fellow, which is a very prestigious fellowship in the US. And as I'm a founder at TBRC, that's the Elite Book Readers Club. It's a club for those who are passionate about their capacity development and consider book as a tool for that goal. Uh, Prior to coming to the US, I was privileged to be an Education US OFP scholar, which gave me the opportunity to be where I am right now without breaking the bank to study over. I mean, like to transition, right? I mean, it cost a lot of transition, so I'm grateful to them. And presently, I am the vice president at BGSA, once a grad representative at National Society of Black Engineers, and currently a member at Grad Council. So that's just a little bit about me. Just what that shows is that I wear so many hats in the sense that I love to volunteer. I love to give up my time to other things aside from my research, and that's why you can see me on this platform talking about grad school. Not really because I'm not that I am less busy. I'm very busy, but giving back is always one of my core values, and I do this at every capacity, whether in RPI, whether in my society, whether to the Black community or to Nigeria or to my alma mater, which is University of Benin. So I finished from University of Benin, studying chemical engineering. Okay, so let's go straight into the discussion of the day. Um, like the grad school stuff, right? I know a lot of people have come to my DM to talk about grad school, ask me a lot of questions about grad school, and sometimes the questions could be repetitive, and I hoping that this session will be like uh, a chicken or a chicken soup, like one size fits all for every question you might have about grad school or about applying. So whether you are about to start grad school application or you have started and you're like in a state of dilemma, like you don't know what to do next, or you're just giving it a consideration, like should I go, should I not? You want, maybe you're thinking that this session will be like an expository one that would finally decide if you make that quantum leap or not, right? But before I go further, I would like to know the background of my audience. Like, I know I'm invited by the elite, sorry, by the Nigeria set of uh, chemical engineers, UNIBEN, right? And so I believe most of the audience might have like a chemical engineering background and your science background generally. So in case you are not science background and let's say your art, it would be good if you can state that in the comment section, so that I can take note of that. However, I will try as much as possible to um, say things that are applicable to both sciences and other field, right? And I saw a question about if the section is recorded. Yes, it is recorded. Um, yeah, okay. So let's go straight into the application question to grasp the application. So I mean, many of us will have this dream school. Um, we have these particular top school we want to go to. For some, grad school is like a means to go to that particular dream school they have. While for some, grad school is like a means to survive, right? I will talk a little bit about that. I mean, like recently, especially okay, we have somebody from with arts background, very good. So especially the fact that if you're coming from a developing country, the cost of living, the survival rate is quite ridiculous. And one of the ways you could, leave your country could be like through grad school. But I would want to debunk some myth about that because I mean it's a good reason to move, but it's not a good enough reason. It's in fact it's not a good reason at all to apply for especially some levels of program like a PhD because your passion, your grit will be tested. And if you don't have the passion and the grit for this, you would, you will chicken out. Like you're not able to, stay longer in the stuff, right? Because it's highly demanded. Okay, I think I've done so many uh, preambles. So let me just deep dive into the session. So I'll be splitting the session into three categories. The first category is targeting schools and scholarships. And under this, the first category of targeting school and scholarship, I'll talk about three things: grad school versus professional schools, the different kinds of master's degrees that are out there, and how you can search for schools or scholarship programs. Okay, then I'll delve also into like how you can build the right candidate profile. I'm talking about your research interest, the requirements that are necessary, and how you could optimize your profile to make use of whatever you have and get what you want, right? I mean, like they're not looking for the like the best, right? I mean, like you see people who don't have some kind of profile, right? They don't have this beastie kind of profile, but they are in the Ivy Leagues and the drip schools, right? It's not because of uh, those profile alone, they know how to optimize it, right? They optimize their profile and they were able to sell it in a very marketable way that won the admission committees act, right? So we'll talk about that. Then also we'll talk about how you can submit winning applications, the top tricks for SOP, writing samples, letters of recommendations. Yeah. Okay. So let's go to the first one, which is targeting the schools, right? So for this first one, let's look at grad school versus professional school, which is a very important area to consider. Like, do you think you would really want to do grad school, or do you feel that you are best suited for professional school? Right? That's the kind of question we would all have. So for graduate school, it is much more tailored to your academic discipline. Um, it is like, for example, you have a background in my case, I have a background in chemical engineering. I mean, in the science field, or let me say in the engineering field, right? So I mean, in the school of engineering. So if I want to do a master's or a PhD, it has to be something related to that school of engineering. So I can be in the chemical engineering department and do a master's in material science engineering or in mechanical engineering or in anything that's within the niche of engineering, right? Within that faculty or that school, right? And that's for master's level. At the PhD level, the line is a bit blurry, um, in the sense that I won't say it's blurry, but I'll say it's like it depends on like your PhD can be exact, but the area you could do your research in can diversify into different areas, right? For example, you could have a PhD in chemical engineering, but your research is in the biospace. You're in the engineering, biological engineering department, or your research is in the biophysics, right? And you have somebody in the biophysics department who is doing a research that's much more suited to the material science engineers. So at the PhD level, the kind of research you can do does not really depend on the background you have. It depends on your passion, right? But your PhD will still be in the similar background you're coming from, right? You cannot have you cannot have like a bachelor's in chemical engineering and you want to get a PhD uh, in biomedical engineering. Although they are very closely related, right? You would have to first do a master's in biomedical engineering and get a PhD in biomedical engineering, right? Um, but some schools like as far as you're in the engineering field, some schools like try to make it easier to switch. So you could but it's just that you take more coursework. You take all the fundamental coursework. So which is almost like a master's kind of program. You take a lot of coursework before you satisfy your course requirements, then move to a PhD. So that's graduate degree is all about masters of art, and PhD, right? But for a professional degree is all about getting an advanced training for a specific program. So the minimum requirement for a professional degree is a bachelor's. Bachelor's in anything does not matter, right? Bachelor's in anything, it does not matter. Uh, but so, for example, you could have a background in sciences, right? Let's say you have a bachelor's in physics, but you could, you could go for an MBA, right? That's a master business administration. You could go for doctor of medicine, that's MD. That's why you see somebody is like, he's an accountant, he's a doctor, he's a lawyer, right? If you want to, how did he did that? He went back to school to first do a bachelor's in all these degrees? No, he would definitely do a bachelor's in the particular main degree, right? But the rest are like not degrees, right? So you could get a doctor of medicine, you could get a master in public health, right? You don't need to you don't need to really, really do a bachelor's in public health or a bachelor's in nursing. It's just if you have anything that you're kind of interested in it. The same thing with fine art, master of fine art, juris doctor. Um, juris doctor is law, a doctor at law. So there's a difference between LLD and JD. So in the academic world, a, a PhD like law student or a PhD like law expert is LLD, right? Right. Someone who went to a professional school or got a professional degree at that same level is a JD. And at master's level, the person is LLM in the academic setting. In the professional setting, it is master at law. Then at bachelor's level, it is LLB, and it is for professional level, it is bachelor's at law. All right. Oh, sorry. Yeah, barrister at law, right? BL. So just to show you, like that's why you could be in the arts department or the science department and have a JD. You can have um, a BL. You can have all these law degrees, right? Just based on passion. Why am I saying all this is that so that in case maybe you found yourself in a particular degree at bachelor's level based on you know the situation of the country or maybe based on what your parents suggested that oh do this, I think you would do great in sciences, and you end up you did the sciences, you did the engineering, but it does not make sense to you, like you're struggling, you're not finding satisfaction in it, like you struggled, not struggle because it was difficult, right? But You struggle because you were doing it for the sake of doing. You were not finding any sense of fulfillment, any sense of satisfaction. But along the way, you maybe when you finish your bachelor's, you went into the industry and you ventured into the accounting world. And you kind of love the way accounting works. You love how the finance world works. And you're like, I think I will just go for a master's. And you're wondering if I should go for a master's based on my bachelor's background, or I should go for a master's based on what I'm interested in. So I'm trying to show you that there's a pathway. Like if you really love finance, even if you have an engineering background, you can go for a professional degree, like an MBA, right? So if you love law and you're a science student, you can still go for it. If you love education, you can add like different. So I mean, my job is also to show you that it is not just masters in sciences that exist and PhD that exist. There are also this other stuff. And in case when you see people use those titles, you should know what differentiate them from the other, right? And again, schools kind of sell both. Like some schools now market both graduate degrees and professional. So so you can know what you're going for. Okay. I think I've done justice to that. And if you have any question, you can drop it in the group in the comment section. So let's look at the different types of master's degree that are out there. So there's a co-term master's, a terminal master's, and non-terminal master's, right? What differentiates them is so a co-term master's is a I don't know if it exists in other countries, but I know it's popular in the US, in the United States, where you will do your 4 years of bachelor's, and instead of you graduating instantly in that your fourth year, you wait an extra year in the school doing your master's. So when you're graduating with a bachelor's and a master's, right? So it's like co-terminal, right? It is co like your co means conjoined, right? You are joining both your bachelor's and your master's, but you are terminating it at the end. Like this, when you're done with that program, you are done. Like you're done with your bachelor's and master. There's no continuity. There might be continuity if you want to further. I mean, but based on the program timeline, like there is nothing like there's no immediate continuity in that timeline. Okay, so terminal master is also like you're doing a master's, you're 1 year, you're done, right? If you want to do a PhD, it's up to you, but based on the program, you are done, right? Um, while a non-terminal master's is when you maybe you're just doing that master's while you're doing another program like a PhD, right? That's why you see somebody is doing a PhD and if we show off like if we have a master's while doing that PhD, right? He does like, okay, I think I've done a lot of courseworks while doing my PhD. Let me just convert the courseworks to um, a master degree. For example, of this kind of masters is like master in engineering, or master of engineering. I mean, yeah, master of engineering is just you're not doing thesis. So the reason you're not doing a thesis is because you are still continuing that program towards a doctorate degree. But if you're going to terminate your master's, that is, you're doing a master's at science or master of science or master of art, um, you will do a thesis because you are terminating immediately, right? So just to give you a flavor of the kind of master's programs that are out there. Okay, so let's look at how we can search for schools and scholarships. I mean, there are different platforms. I kind of try to search for different platforms that I think would help out. I feel those ones are like a go-to place, like the study portal masters. If you're interested in master's program, there's also study portals PhD. If you're interested in PhD program, we have the Princeton review site, also a good one. A lot of people use these US news ranking to search for schools, although their rankings are kind of biased, and it's much more tailored to undergrad and some political factors. But it don't really give you a true flavor of what to expect and how good the school is or how good the faculty is, right? So let me explain this. Is that so? There's some schools in the US where the I may be a bit biased because I'm in the US. I'm not in another country, so I might not be able to talk about other countries very well. But for the US, so there's some schools that mean, they have a very good profile, good everything, but they're not that large, right? So the kind of ranking they may get might not be a true testament of the the kind of quality the school gives, right? I want you to take note of that. Um, Okay, thank you. Thanks, Taia, for that comment. So that's for some US schools, right? And so some schools that are very, very big, like they have, when I mean big, like because they have so many programs beyond just sciences, they have commercial programs, non-commercial programs, different kind of programs. So because of that, they kind of, get a broad number of students and that can help their ranking. So, but if you are going for a PhD, ranking would not really be a case for you. It's all about the faculty you want to work with and the um, the school's capacity, the kind of faculty they what they have, the equipment that are there, the centers, like the facilities are very, very crucial. Uh, but for master's level, if you're just interested in masters, or yeah, I think the ranking of the school might really matter because after all, you're just there for 1 year and you just go out and get a good job or do any other thing you want to do with your masters, right? Okay, so I feel you already have a lot of platforms you could use to check. And then the other platforms you can also use. We have this website. You can check the NIH platform, the Fast Aid platform. PhD stipend. PhD stipend shows you like the typical stipend you would get if you're doing a PhD in that place. This one scholarship position shows you like the available scholarships that are there. We have academic IFI, the PhD, profile.com. So another place where you could also get updates is LinkedIn and Twitter or X. So you could follow some hashtags. I don't know if you know how to do that. So um, for X, you could just go to your I don't know if maybe go to the notification and like tell X anytime there is anybody uses this hashtag, please bring it to my notice. Or you could just search for hashtag study in the US, hashtag PhD, hashtag masters, hashtag scholarship, so those kind of hashtags, and you will get a lot of updates because nowadays professors, they go online to post their positions. Like they go to LinkedIn, especially to post the openings they have in their lab or in their school. Okay. Um, yeah, so everything you need basically is online. You don't need to meet somebody to pay somebody to get you schools. Like it's uh, a first important caveat I would give out is if you're not ready to put in the work for this, then I will recommend that you should not try grad school application. It's like a full-time job. It is not something you just say. Sometimes if you can feel so frustrated when you're applying to jobs, like if you think you're the guy that is frustrated by applying to jobs, I think grad school application will frustrate you even the most because you will not have that time. Like you would I mean, you have so many things you have to prepare, so many documents. It takes a lot of work to do. So is a you have to do it yourself thing. DIY, do it yourself. Okay, so just have that at the back of your mind. It's a DIY process. Okay. So let's switch the gear a little bit. Still on okay, I'm still on grasp application on the site. So, like I was explaining, this is US news. So, if you go to your Google or whatever web browser you're using, you can just search for US news ranking school or US news graduate programs, US news best or best chemical engineering programs for grad school, all those stuff, right? So, once you do that, let me, I want you guys to see the screen very well. Okay, yeah. So once you do that, you'll see this. So this is like I search for chemical engineering. So this is home education grad school. So you have to be checked that it's grad school. So the ranking for grad schools or the ranking of schools differs whether you're looking at it on based on grad school or based on undergrad school, right? So what some people don't get is like when they say school is number one, right? It might just be number one for undergrad, but not does not mean that school is fit to do a grad school there, right? I don't want to mention some schools, but it's just the way it is, right? So you have to first check grad school. So best engineering school now in the chemical engineering because I'm in the chemical engineering department. So yeah, also you can see another way of toggling this filter is yeah you can see engineering, you can also see chemical engineering, you can also toggle this filter this menu and you will see your program. And if you're in the if you're not in the sciences commercial, you can also toggle these um, place and you'll see your different field there, right? And then you can select, or maybe you're just interested in the school, you can check here for the school. And again, maybe you're trying to decide if this school is better than this other school, right? Not just based on the ranking, maybe based on the acceptance rate and the kind of diversity they have in that school. You can still use this platform and it will show you different schools. Then you can click on add to compare. I don't know if you can see this small space at the. I don't know if you guys can see my cursor, my mouse moving, but I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, so I have my mouse moving around the corner. So if um okay, I would have loved to know if you guys can see my mouse moving, but I'm not sure you guys can see it. Anyway, so at the end, at the bottom left, you'll see add to compare. So whatever schools you add, right, at the end of it, you can now compare all the schools, right, based on their ranking, based on what features they bring, based on maybe the tuition, based on the kind of facilities they have, right? So this is like a one way to make your list of schools, right? It's not like the best, but it is like it helps you, filter out of other schools. Okay, so it's not really about like whether it is Ivy League or not Ivy League, right? So it might be an Ivy League school, but not the best school. Okay, so you can see my mouse. Okay, that's fine. So it can be an Ivy League school, but not the best school for your program, right? So I see people like, oh, I want to go to Ivy League, Ivy League, Ivy League, right? Good, which is good, right? I mean, it makes a lot of sense for your CV, but does it make a lot of sense for your program? For example, let me give a very popular case study, right? If you hear someone say they studied at Harvard University, and I mean, what you expect is that, oh, I did law at Harvard, right? Because they have a very fantastic law program, right? Uh, it is very, I mean, when you see people talk about, like let's say engineering, like you don't see people say I did. I mean, like if you say you finish your, let's say your PhD in engineering, or let's say biological engineering at Harvard, I mean, Harvard is a very great school, and Ivy League, but it might not really be like a thing, right? Because I mean, they have a very good program, but they are not like the top when it comes to that area of specialty, right? The same thing the same thing also applies to some specific area of research, like a very specific area of research. And for example, my area of research, I'm into the protein purification space. So for protein purification, purifying proteins using chromatography techniques and or purifying drugs or purifying a virus um, using chromatographic approaches and all about downstream purification. My school happens to be like one of the top in that area, and especially my faculty, the my supervisor is like one of the apex, um, the leading researcher in that particular space, right? So and that's part of the reason why I'm at RPI um, to do my PhD, and I'm with him. So you can see that those things really matter than just looking at the Ivy League, but it's not bad anyway. So I kind of showed um, a school list you could create. So this is like an Excel file that you could create for yourself. So I kind of broke the Excel file into two so that you can see it. So you have like maybe the level of your this level is talking about like your application level. Like maybe you are put in 10% into the process, like just tracking your progress so far in the application to that school. Or maybe you could use Notion. Nowadays, I've become so enthused with Notion because of the productivity it gives. So you can use Notion to track your schools, like to track what you have done, what you have not done, what kind of priorities it to you, is it your topmost priority, your first priority, and all those stuff. Which research interests are you looking into? Who are the PIs that you want to email? Who are the people that you think you would want to work with? Does the school require direct application or not? So what I mean by direct application is that so some schools, you would have to reach out to a faculty, right? Um, a supervisor to indicate your interest to work with them, and based on the kind of conversation you have, that would determine your admission. So what that means is that the faculty kind of determines the kind of the student that comes into the school, not the admission committee, right? Uh, it differs for some schools. So there's some schools that you don't need to reach out to anybody. So if you send a cold email, it's very important you take note of what I'm saying. So if that school does not require direct application, right? And I mean by direct application, like you don't need to cold email anybody, right? Um, please don't cold email anybody. Please don't. Reason being that I mean, you can code email. You can send a code email, but don't expect a reply. And not getting a reply does not mean the person is not interested in you, right? Does not mean that the advisor does not consider you a good fit. It's just that the school rules is that the admission committee determines the student they think would fit into the program. So they are looking for students that fit into the program, not students that fit into a specific lab. They are two different things. So whenever you see a job posting out there, now I'm speaking specifically to like a PhD kind of programs, not necessarily like masters, right? Although some masters, if it's research masters, um, okay, yeah, we also have, I need to talk about it. So we have research masters, we have taught masters, right? So for research masters, you really need a supervisor that you work with, but for thought masters, it doesn't care, right? I mean, it doesn't matter who you are working with. It's just you're going there to receive some coursework and you graduate. Okay. So back to a PhD kind of situation. So like I said, if the school does not require you sending code emails, right? You just have to apply to the school, just directly to the school. You don't need to send code email to anybody because the admission committee are the one that decide the student to come. The faculty doesn't even know who's coming, but they believe there's so much trust that the student that the admission committee will pick as student that will fit into their lab. So when you come over, then you will some schools you have to go through rotation, like you go across different labs. I'm sorry, I might be a bit specific to sciences. So in other field it might not be the same, but it's just like you go through different professors or supervisors. Um, After that, then you now decide the place you want to work with, or the supervisor you want to work with, or the PI you want to work with, depending on the kind of language that is used in your school. Um, so that's like my school. You don't for my and again it's program specific. So for my program, you don't need to do across lab. It's just you'll hear uh, the advisors talk about what they do, learn about what they do, and then you just if you find their research interesting or a particular project interesting, then you up on it, and that becomes your research. Um, then another thing is like AFI waiver. Do they have AFI waivers for that school? I mean, just document that. What are the requirements? Do you need to write GRE or not? Um, yeah, that's very important because GRE is very expensive. So if it's not required, then that's good. If it's required, they might have to take note of that. Then maybe you have many recommenders that you feel you can assign to that particular school. So you don't, for example, if you're applying to like 10 schools, 20 schools, You don't want to have a particular recommender sending application to all the 20. It can be very tiring, right? Except they are generous with their time. Okay, what are the things you need to do? Maybe reach out to the grad coordinator to help you reach out to the PI or whatever case may be. What have you started doing at the moment? So then you can now start classify your selections based on like, oh, these are the Ivy Leagues, or these are the top ranks. Because Ivy League is just it's not does not mean that the school is the top rank. Ivy League is just from it has a traditional history, right? History in the sense like there's a particular athletic competition that is done by um, some particular schools in a particular area in the Boston and some areas, right? So it's from a competition. So that now metamorphosed into like a growth school. People now call it Ivy League. Once you say Ivy League, it's like the top ranked school. It's not really like top rank per se. Although these schools are also top ranked, but just know where the sense of Ivy League comes from. Ivy League comes from um, an history tradition, right, of a particular competition, sports competition that is played by these people, right? Okay, so safety schools does not mean that there's no school in the US that is called safety. Please take note of that. Don't go around us looking for a safety school. What a safety school means is that maybe worst come to worst, like um, if this school does not accept you, this school should accept you, right? But it's not really like the case because these schools also know that you're applying to another school. So they don't want no school wants to be like a second option, right? But this is I mean, why you're just having a very long list, like sometimes I encourage people to do maybe 10 because it's not like you don't have a good profile. Even the person with the best profile might not get into a school, not because they're not good, but because they're not fit. Fit is like based on the kind of research they do, you might not enjoy it, right? So they don't just look at how good you are, look at uh, can you fit into that kind of program, right, or not? So those are the decisions that come into play. So you can also check. So there are R1 universities and R2 universities. R1 universities are like top tier research universities that research based institutions. Like you get a lot of funding in that school, a lot of research related fundings. Um, they are heavily on research. Some schools like you will do a lot of TA if you are a student there just to assist your funding. Um, so those are different kind of categories that matters. In the UK, it also differs. The beauty of let me just quickly chip this in that the beauty of doing a PhD or program is that okay let me rephrase this way. So I don't know the kind of people I have in my audience. So whether you're a bachelor's holder or you're a master's degree holder or you're in the process of getting any of them, um, in the Europe, UK and Europe generally, like you cannot do from a bachelor's to a PhD, right? It has to be from bachelor's to a master's, then master's to a PhD, right? That's the way it moves in other countries, except the United States. So, if I'm not mistaken, I think only in the United States that you can translate directly from a bachelor's to a PhD program. It looks appetizing, but it's almost the same thing. Like if you're doing a master's to a PhD, a bachelor's to a master's to a PhD, and you're doing a bachelor's to a PhD, it's almost the same. Reason being that for a master's program takes typically 1 to 2 years, right? Within 1 to 2 years. So why a PhD program takes 3 years minimum, right? So if you're going from your bachelor's, right? So bachelor's to master's, let's say you spend 2 years, then master's to a PhD, you spend 3 years. That's how many years? 5 years, right? Um, but if you are going from a bachelor's to a PhD, also the same thing, you spend 5 years or you spend 4 years, right? uh, Depending on how much you are ready to put into the work, right? So you also do almost like the same level amount of coursework that a master student will do. But why is bachelor's to a PhD kind of much more appealing than a bachelor's to master, then master's to PhD? Is that if you're doing a bachelor's to a PhD program, you are you get your chances of getting funding, uh, full funding is kind of faster than the rest people. Like basically that you'll be staying much longer in that school, and you know you'll be able to do a lot of work with the advisor or with the faculty. But if you're not interested in going for a PhD, I would recommend a master's. So let me give you a personal note. So you might throw everything I'm saying now over the water, like just straight to the waters, but it's just my personal experience from friends and colleagues. Uh, Please and please, if you are not passionate about research, don't go for a PhD. Okay? If you're not passionate about research, don't go for a PhD. Um, yeah, if you know you don't have the patience to do research, you're not ready to have sleepless nights, you're not ready to, uh, almost almost want to lose your sanity because you're trying to troubleshoot a problem, please don't do it. It's not for the faint-hearted. I can say this. I have. I mean, I can tell you from experience. It is not for the faint-hearted. You will be depressed. You will go through imposter syndromes. You will feel like giving up several times. And it's not because of your background alone. It is everywhere. Like there is nobody that has gotten a PhD and never for once thought of quitting the PhD. Everybody always wants to quit. Reason being that, when you did your undergrad, you're all about taking in information. You're all about, tell me what to do and I do it. But at PhD levels, you have to know everything that is necessary to know, and then you have to create a new body of knowledge. You have to create a new, so you are not just learning science, you are going to learn science and try to push science forward, which is very difficult to push science forward with a new level of knowledge, right? So that's where that transition process requires a lot of effort. And if you're not ready to cry, if you're not ready to have sleepless nights, if you're not ready to, you know, go through the waters, please just go for a master's. I mean, like after 1 year or 2 years, we're done. Okay? So let's talk about research interest. But before I go further, let me just quickly give room for questions. So if you have any question, you can just drop it, and I can quickly address that. Okay. Um, so let me just know in the comment section that I'm on point, or it's like I know if I should hasten up in my presentation, or I should, take my time to explain. Okay. I'm waiting for just two feedback from the audience, like Peter, you are good to go. Just continue. Anita, let me hear from you. Am I good to go? I just want to know I'm not talking to myself.
No, you're not talking to yourself. I'm listening.
Okay,
Wow,
good.
I'm not listening.
Okay, good. So how many minutes do I still have? Is it like a 2 hour event or still? Oh, it's up to me.
Well, we were aiming for 2 hours, 45 minutes. So
2 hours,
I
45 minutes. Like, I will do 2 hours. 2 hours is enough.
I'm thinking we
Okay, good to go. Thank you.
all right, no problem.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just want to know. Yeah. So, I saw a question from Ludovic. It said, "How will I know institutions like I send a cold email and those that don't?" Okay. Yeah. So I talked about schools that you could send cold emails to or not. Um, the way you can know this is go to go to the application page of the programs. Like so, this can be so annoying in the sense that people don't check information out there and they just come to people's DM or go to send a code email to the graduate program administrators or the admission committee, and the admission committee is like, go to the FAQ, like frequently asked questions. So the reason why there are FAQs is that people ask these questions billions of times, right? And they created a section to ensure that all your questions are answered. So only ask the admission committee the question that the answer has not been presented anywhere, right? So if you go to every school's FAQ, in the FAQ, they will detail uh, the things that you should expect, like whether you need to take GRE or not, and the kind of programs that require GRE. Then for code email, they'll also specify if they should send code email to faculty or not, right? So for I know of some schools, like for example, University of Alabama, you will need to send code email. In fact, they might even give you admission and then tell you to look for a faculty that's ready to work with you. I know some other schools like that. So there are different schools like that. I mean, that you have to check. Um, like you have to reach out to an advisor before you come into that school, and that's why in those schools they you can see them put job posting out there, because they are kind of bringing people exactly into their area, right? Yeah, I feel that's where you can get it. Yeah. Okay. um okay. Osazura said, you're doing great. I really love to have your Excel template to track application. Okay, I think it's not that complicated. It's just uh, those headlines I've showed you. Maybe when you go back to the recording, you can just screenshot that area and make it so right. There's nothing really complicated about it, right? Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about research interest, right? Because it's very important. It's important if you are going for a PhD program. If you're going for a master's, a research master is also important. But if you are going for a thought master's, might not be necessary, right? Because I mean, like it's just thought masters is like you're just going there to receive. Which I'm not ridiculing thought masters, please. It's a very good program. It's just like you're going there not for research base. We're just going there for courseworks, which will also improve your learning. But if you're really interested in getting like fully funded scholarships, you might not really get that with thought masters because uh, you're not really bringing anything to the table for the people there, right? It's only beneficiary to you specifically, right? So scholarships are more of like a win-win situation, right? Except you get fellowship, right? Um, I'll explain that anyway. So I have an example here, generic. I want to study genomics or gene expression, right? You put that on your, let's say you put that on your LinkedIn page, on your summary page in LinkedIn. Yeah, if someone's interested in studying genomics or gene expression, that's very vague, very, very vague. Uh, a specific will be like, I want to study how plant is influenced in by genes A and B in maize, right? Or you might not even need to specify to I mean, in this case, now this is too specific, right? Because I know that I was just reading this is not right. Yes, so it must not be too generic and it must not be too specific, right? Generic in the sense that it's too broad, specific in the sense that it's too narrow, right? Like sending somebody that you're interested in how plant is influenced in maize, it will raise the question like, okay, what in my that's maize in your country, but in my country, I'm not really interested, or in my lab, I'm not interested in maize. Like, so I don't think you can come to this, you can do my research because you are just interested in in maize, but I'm not interested in maize, right? So a way that seems like a balance of generic and specific is I'm interested in utilizing molecular biological techniques how um, to determine how plant height affect crop yield, right? So it is you're talking about molecular biology techniques, you're talking about plant height and crop yield, right? So maize is like first under the category of crops, plant height is a feature, genes is all about biological techniques, right? Um, so it should not be too specific. It should not be too generic. It should be a blend of both. So find that sweet spot. Uh, yeah. So I think it's for me. Let me quickly go back again to this. So how can you find that sweet spot on how you could, you know how to write your research interest is by reading review papers. So what I would recommend is that let's say you are interested in um, let's say you are in the finance area, right? In the finance world, you don't really know the kind of research they're doing. So what do is that you can go to there are different ways to go about it. For example, if you don't have a specific interest, let's say you don't have a specific interest, you are just interested in anything that's interesting, right? You can just be interested in anything interesting, right? And interesting is relative. So if you just go to maybe the schools you're particularly interested in, check out the faculties they have, and check out the kind of research they do, right? So if you find maybe like, oh, they do this particular research, they do econometrics, they do, data analytics, they do, let's say they apply it to financial modeling and, and all those kind of stuff and valuation and all those stuff. So um, the way to go about it is like, can maybe look for a review paper. So there are different kind of papers. There are article papers and review papers. So an article paper is a paper or a published paper that talks specifically, it's like an original work talking about a particular research, what you did to achieve a particular objective in the research. But a review paper is basically like a one size fits all perspective of that particular research. So a review paper gives you, oh, this is what people have done. These people did this. These people did that. This is the problem we are trying to solve. This person did it this way. This person did it this way. These are the limitations while he was doing it. This is what is not do right. This is what they can do better. Okay, this is what we think we should do in the future. So it gives you a blend of the hindsight meaning the things that I've done in the past, insight, insight in the sense that the things that are currently being done, and foresight, foresight of things that will be done in the future. That's hindsight, insight, and foresight. So that's why review papers are really good if you don't know why you should do this particular research, or if you don't even know why you're interested in this research in the first place. So that will even help you to fine tune your research interest. That's number one. It will help you for your application profile in terms of drafting your statement of purpose or research statement and other things. Okay. Um, yeah, that's for research interest. Let's switch the gear to some requirements. Let me take a minute to drink a cup of water. Yeah, so what are the basic requirements for graduate schools? Um, so these are like the list, like the kitchen list for grad school application. You have your transcript. Your transcript is might not necessarily be the official one while you are still applying. In fact, if you have your transcript, even if it's the official one and you have it in your custody, it's coming from you, it is considered unofficial, right? It's only considered official um if you are moving, if you're transiting from you know, sorry, a question came into the group, so that's why I changed. I lost my train of thought, but I'll answer that question very soon. But it's only considered official if it's directly from the school to other to the particular school you're interested in, right? So it's directly, right? But some schools don't really care. The US system, especially like based on trust. So even if you're the one bringing it down over to from Nigeria or from your country down to the US, because they know the cost of transport, moving the files can be expensive. They can trust you for that. But it all depends. But it has to be a transfer that it is letter headed to them, right? Like to this particular school. right? Yeah, that's for transcripts. Differentiating between official and unofficial. The application fees usually is around $75. So for some California schools, it's usually around $135, $105. So some schools give out waivers. I know my school give out application fee waiver. In fact, don't let me talk about that. Okay. But if you have the $75, you can pay. But if you don't have it, you can always request a fee waiver. I recommend asking for a fee waiver. And at the same time, if your profile, there's also another thing about this is that if your profile is not that competitive, right? You know your current position, right? I mean, man, know thyself. Like I'll talk about other things that make up the entire mix, but you know that you don't really have a very high GPA. You don't really have too much a very solid publication record or stuff like that. You could I would kind of recommend also trying to apply to schools that require people to pay app fee. Like they don't waive it, right? Like not in their on their website they say they do not waive, right? They do not waive. So in that kind of situation, your competition level will be a little bit less, right? Because many students will be discouraged from applying to those schools. So that increases your chances. So if your school is giving out free waiver for everybody, that means that your chances of getting admission is very slim because there will be high influx of applications and a lot of scrutiny, right? But if the influx is very low, right, your chances of getting in or being admitted is also good. So it's always a 50-50, right? Any school that tells you there's a fee waiver, apply. The one that not tell you, and you really like the school, and you see some fantastic faculty that are doing some great research there, gather the money if you can pay it, and then apply to that school. So it's like that. For statement of purpose or personal statement, so they are kind of the same and not the same. Let me explain that is if a school asks you just a statement of purpose, right? Or they say research statements, right? Or personal statements. If they mention any of these things I've said, and it's just one document that is asked of, right? Then they are the same, right? Your statement of purpose is as personal statement, like everything is the same. Take note is that I said if that is the only question you're asked, that is the only document you're asked, right? But if the school now asks you for statement of purpose and a personal statement separately, then they are different. Okay? So if the school is asking for statement of purpose and a personal statement, don't treat them the same. Please take note. If they're asking you just one of out of these two, and then maybe they in some school they say personal statement or they say the purpose, whatever content you're writing can apply to both of them. Okay? But the most important thing about statement of purpose is to read the prompt. I'll talk about that very soon anyway. Um, the next thing is your curriculum vitae or your resume, right? I'll talk about that. Letters of recommendations, standardized test scores, and then the application form. Okay. Let's switch the gear to the curriculum vitae or the resume. Let me make this bold. Yeah. So I really do share my resume out there, but this is my resume when I was applying. Um, so things that you don't want to find on your CV is your country, right? We don't need your country, we don't need your address because you're in this case I'm thinking that most people when they say they're applying for postgrad, like they're looking at applying beyond their country, like not in their country, like they're trying to apply to the US, to the United Kingdom, to Europe, whatever area, uh, right? So they don't really care about like your address because in on the application form there will be a lot of questions about your what's it called, your home address and all those stuff, right? So your contacts, yeah, you might want to put that there just for ease, like yeah, your email, your LinkedIn profile, like just the link to it, because these days LinkedIn is becoming a very good social media platform to check how professional you are. Then your Google Scholar, if you have like some, publications, right? Then I recommend like putting your research interest. So people write research interest separately, and then they mention our thing they're kind of interested in. I mean, I was kind of just interested in three things: catalysis, synthetic biology, and sustainable energy. As of then, when I got into the program, I mean, when I got different offers, I had to look for a school that gives me flexibility to choose whatever research I would end up becoming interested in, right? But let's leave that for another talk. So, like a brief summary about yourself, talking about the kind of research you do or the kind of research you're interested in, and maybe a particular highlight that you feel that they should not miss out of the entire story. It's not really necessary, but you can want to do that. Your school, the program, your graduating class, your GPA, but make sure if you're applying to a school that or to a country that uses different um, score system, it's important to try to rationalize your score from your own score system to theirs score system, right? Um, Nigeria we use the 5.0 scale. In most schools, I know some new schools now have like 4.0 requirements, but you could use West IGPA. Now West IGPA is different from a West. So so there are different credentials evaluation platforms out there, right? So some schools require you to do like your transcripts or your credential evaluations, right? So in that case, you will pay some amount of money to West means or Western Education Service, and they will kind of evaluate your entire certificate to fit into their own standard. But the West also have like a free resource called West IGPA, small I GPA, right? So what you do there that you just go to this, just type West IGPA, capital WES and small I, let me leave space, small I GPA, and then you'll see the site and to ask you some information that you can get on your transcript. So you need your transcript handy, so you put in the information like your scores and all those things, then it does the calculation to whatever scale is applicable to that country, whether it is the 4 point scale, whether it is a percentage scale, whatever scale is applicable to that country of interest. In this case, mine is a 4.0 scale in the US. And there's also a Scholaro. I got to know Scholaro from another school. So Scholaro can also like evaluate yours. The beauty of Scholaro is like it's kind of elevate your GP more than what a West will give you. Then your thesis, the coursework you did that you feel that are kind of related to your research. It's not a list of all the coursework you have done, but it's a list of the coursework that you think might really matter, right, to your research, right? I put biochemical engineering because I was interested in more biology related kind of research. Um, and yeah, so that's it. Then your research experience, which is very important. Um, then you have some publications, right? So there are different kind of publications you could have. You could have maybe uh, a publication that is still in the process. So if it's in the process, you will call it manuscript in preparation, like you're still trying to prepare the manuscript. If you have submitted, if you have prepared the manuscript and you have submitted the manuscript, so you put under review, and you have to include the name of the journal that that manuscript was submitted to. That's the way of really trusting the fact that you submitted the manuscript, right? So you cannot just say you submitted a manuscript or manuscript on that review without including the journal that it was submitted to, right? And if it's finally submitted, right, and it's approved, yeah, you want to include, I mean, like you want to take your time to check out the citation. So whenever you publish an article, oh, you can use scholar.google.com and you'll see a small portion that shows sites. So another site, it will show you how you should have the citation, right? So make sure you cite properly because it also shows You understand how citation is done. You're going for a research, so you must understand how citations are done. But it will be very good to bold your name so that they can see where your name is on the citation, right? On the on the citation, right? That's it. Therefore, teaching experience is also very important. Um, so maybe those little things you did in school, like you were helping your friends learn some coursework. Like in my case, in UNIBEN, I did a lot of tutorials for students. I've trained a lot of students like through my materials, through organizing classes. So just find, I mean, in my time, we had a name for this. We call it camp study. Uh, so just you can just say peer facilitator or a peer teacher, like for your colleagues. I mean, that experience is also important because if you are going for a PhD, for example, you would have to do teaching assistantship, right? So, I mean, like the essence of your CV is you're trying to sell yourself for whether it's a research assistantship or a teaching assistantship, right? Because that's where the funding usually comes from. So, so the so they're not just selecting brilliant students. No, they're looking for the student that can get the job done. So I want you to see. So at bachelor's level, we see education from they are going to school to study, but at PhD level, especially, or let's say master's, research master's level, um, it is a different point of view, right? So it's all about, does this guy have what it takes to get the work done? So when they're not seeing you, they're just seeing the projects that they have funding for, and they are trying to see, oh, what skill set does this guy have to do this work, right? So I want you to put that at the very forefront of your mind. So that when you're designing your CV, you should think about it first. That they have a particular funding and they're looking for who can get the job done, right? So that's for teaching experience. So you can see that your work experience does not really matter, except so it differs, right, in field. If you're going for, let's say, you are in the finance space, your work experience may really, really matter, right? Because you are working in that area of research, but in the industry setting, right? Um, yeah, and but if it is far fetched, that does not really relate. Just keep the highlight on a very low level, right? So it does not take too much, right? Because that's not what they're interested in. Like I said, you're not trying to show them everything you have. You try to show them what you think they are very, very much interested in. Like I just explained to you, they have the funding and they're looking for who to get the job done. That should be at the very forefront of your mind. Okay. Um. Oh, sorry. I talk about so voluntary experience is also important. Like some schools, I mean, they're not just looking for a student that is super smart. They're looking for a student that can engage in the society, that can add value to their society. So it's also important. So look for some organizations that do some kind of thing that relates to your research that you can volunteer with. Nowadays, you have the SDGs, right? So there's SDG 1 to 17, if I'm not mistaken. So those different SDGs, they have different volunteering organizations that you could just do some stuff with, perhaps provided it relates to your research. Okay. So let's switch the gear also to leadership experience. So I recommend that you do not have a resume that is above 3 pages. Like no matter all you have, like if you see my resume when I was applying for a job, it was very, very much long. It was 3 pages actually, but it has a lot of content, right? But many of those content are not here, right? I took a lot of certifications, a lot of certification because I'm interested in finance also. So I took a lot of certifications in the finance world, but I did not put everything yet. I never put anyone yet, right? Why am I saying this is that I see people out there, they make a CV and they just put everything they have, right? and they're not trying to send any message. So, I mean, if you're applying for a job, a job they will look for that interested in someone that has different kind of experience. I can bring different experience from this area. But when applying for a graduate program, is not that does not matter. What matters is what you can do to that program's requirements. Okay? If you're applying to a professional degree, like I've explained earlier, right? Those things might also matter, right? So just know what really matters and tailor your CV to suit that purpose. For professional development and certifications, it's also important. Like I recommend like you guys check out a Xavier Researcher Academy. Yeah, I think a Xavier Research Academy. Although I put research here, but the website is Elsevier Researcher Academy. So they have a lot of free courses on how to write research, whether you are science, you're not science, or you are commercial, you can still learn from Elsevier Research Academy. Although they are more of a science journal, but you can still learn how to write journals, how to write articles, right? How to write manuscripts. I recommend taking this fundamentals of manuscript preparation. It's like a module. It contains like maybe 7 short courses that you can finish everything within 2 hours. Like you can finish everything, the entire stuff in 2 hours. Um, so check out these fundamentals of manuscript preparation. Then learn some softwares that you feel are applicable to your skills, um, to your research, like taking some non-degree programs. Okay. Um, yeah, so there's this in Asp by Author Aid that I found very interesting. I think you should also check it out if you're in the sciences, if you're not. So what I'm just basically saying that look for non-degree programs right now. So this is the area of like you're trying to optimize your profile. Like, the first thing I tell people, especially those that just recently graduated, and they're like, hey, Peter, I want to go for grad school. I want to go for PhD. I'm like, okay, I say, take a cheap pill. Like, rest. Take a cheap pill, rest. Um, do you think, okay, what do you have? Like, kind of make your CV, right? And then you will know the areas to fill up. So for some of you, maybe what you have is just um, your your IGPA or your GPA, right? That's just one of the many requirements. It's just one. In fact, you don't need to have a very high GPA to get into top programs, right? In fact, you can have a 2-1 if you're in Nigeria, like you are. I mean, like as far as you are above a 3.0 over 4.0, that's all that matters to them. Or let's say average 3.2 over 4.0. So whatever is your GPA, do the conversion. As far as above 3.0 over 4.0, even if you are below that, like some schools still take it, like they look at other things. What do you bring to the table, right? So if you have other fantastic stuff that you bring to the table, then it won't really matter whether you have that or not. Okay. Um, so that's for optimizing, and then your skill sets. I like to segment the skill set into like technical skills, research techniques, and the soft skills, right? Don't just lump them all together so that the person can kind of, hey, this guy has this guy has this, right? So that's what I think you should put out there. So, I mean, for those in not science background, I mean, from there, you should know the kind of skills that are important in your field. Maybe it can be like data analytics. It can be, I don't really know about so much about that field, but I think you will know, right? Then the hours you have and some professional affiliations that you think you have. If you have some conference talks, yeah, I do not have any conference talks. That's why I populated my CV with some of those things, some other things. But if you have conference talks, you can put your conference talks, poster presentations, and all those stuff. Put it, which is really really good, right? I don't have it, that's why I didn't put it here. Um, so I okay, so this is the program. This is the site I was referring to. This Research Academy Elsevier.com, writing for research. So you can see fundamentals. Okay, let me go this. You can see fundamentals of manuscript preparation. I don't know if I can show my cursors here, but I don't think I can do that. Um, Okay, I can actually do that, but I'm not sharing that slide. I'm sharing from another from my documents. Okay, yes, yes. It's also important that you link um your certificate. Please take note of that. Link them. Because it's I mean what the way you can link them that so this is what I did. So just um you all have a Google account. So on your create a Google Drive account, a folder in that Google Drive and put all your certificates in that folder, right? So when you put the certificate in that folder, then you can copy the link. Make sure they are all open to viewing. Make sure they can all be viewed, right? So once you create that link, go to your Microsoft Word, like as I wrote this Essential Research Academy, then I write like I'll hover around it and right click and then embed it in a link. So what I embed in the link, whenever someone clicks on that, they will see the certificate, right? Because there are a lot of people out there who say they have this certificate, they have this certificate, they have this certificate, which is a blatant lie. Please take note that if you say you have experience in something and you come over and they found out that you do not have that experience, you can be deported for that. Like you can lose your admission for that reason. Let me tell you a very funny joke. It's not really a funny joke, it's a life experience of somebody. The guy said he has some fantastic experience in some machine learning tools. And the only reason that faculty accepted him to come into the lab was just because of that skill set, just that skill set. So the first day the guy joined the lab, um, the professor was like, "Hi, everybody, we have been talking about this guy that that has this machine learning experience. So finally, we have found the solution to our problem." That lab actually focused on more of experimental works. So they have a lot of experimental data that needs somebody to analyze them, right? And they were looking for somebody that has that skills. So the guy came claiming that he has that skill, but after like the first 2 weeks, they found out that this guy does not know a jack about the skill, and instantly his admission was revoked because their Mark cannot accept him again. Like, no, the reason why I brought you into this lab is because you have a skill set, and now you don't have it. So please don't lie, please, because it's better they accept you for who you are than you should come over and they later find out that you are just a farce. That would be a bad one. Okay. Um. So let me raise that up. Okay, I'll kind of round up my session gradually so that I can take answer questions. I can see Faustina's questions. I will talk about them very soon. Um, so let me just quickly take a question so that sometimes the informations are getting too much. So I heard you correctly. If I heard you correctly, you said one cannot further intake. No, I never said this, Faustina. I never said that you cannot further in biomedical engineering to chemical engineering background. Oh, I never said that. What I said is that, in fact, what I said was the opposite, right? I said if you have an engineering background, right, you can do a master's and a PhD in any engineering background, in any other engineering, right? So I have a chemical engineering background. I can go ahead to do a PhD in mechanical engineering or civil engineering. But take note, right? I've explained the way PhD programs work in the US. Like it's almost typical to the way a master's and a PhD program works in the Europe. In the sense that you will take a lot of coursework. So you will make up for those courseworks you did not take, right? Um, the same thing, like I'm in the biological engineering space. I'm currently doing some biology courses that I never did in my undergrad. Although it's because I'm interested in them, it's like I understand my research. But I'm trying to tell you that you have to make up for that. And so it depends on the school, right? So it all falls back to the school. So you check the school, check the backgrounds that are expected. Uh, so I know some school with a chemistry background or industrial chemistry background, you can do a PhD in chemical engineering. So if you check the school's page, they will tell you the required background. And now some schools will now go further to tell you that if you don't have the preliminary background to this particular course, like you don't have, you're going for a PhD in chemical engineering, you don't have a bachelor's in chemical engineering, you will do some coursework to match up the requirements. So you are still going for a chemical engineering. I know somebody that did chemistry in bachelor's, and she just graduated the PhD in my lab. Um, and the PhD is in chemical engineering, right? So it does not really matter, right? So I never said that. Okay, how versatile is petrochemical engineering over there? Because they are trying to, switch from, uh, from oil-based economy to grain-based economy to green economy. So a petroleum engineering or petrochemical engineering is becoming phased out. So most times, if you studied petroleum engineering in Nigeria or in Africa, you would have to go for a PhD or a master's in chemical engineering or other research area or sustainable energy or energy something, right? But you won't see name outright petrochemical engineering. Like I said, at research level, it's all about your passion, right? It's not really about what you studied in your undergrad, right? Because 5 years is more than enough to learn anything you want to learn. Like for me, I'm learning from the scratch. I never have any experience with protein purification. I knew nothing about protein, right? I just started learning all this stuff in my grad school, right? So it depends on the passion and depends on the kind of advisors you have. If they are patient enough to see you grow. Um, okay, I think I've answered that question. Yeah. So with the different postgraduate scholarship opportunities flying around the internet, how can one correctly identify the legit ones? I mean, I can't say. What I will say is that apply to the school. If the way you can know if it's not legit is if they ask you for money. If anybody's asking for money, don't apply. Um, Except you're applying to that when they're asking for application fees, right? But most schools usually give out fee waivers. But if they're not giving out fee waiver, you have to pay. I mean, like I feel the only way you would fall victim of fake platforms or fake people is when you are looking for easy routes to grad school application, right? If you're not ready to put in the work, it takes hard work, serious hard work to apply to grad school. Serious hard work. Serious hard work. Let me emphasize that. So if it's not going to take you, if you say someone to tell you that, hey, you don't need to do anything, just come the way you are and submit. Just run for your life. Just so that it is not the legit ones, right? Because I mean, there's one thing for you to come over, right? And another thing for you to stay. Because grad school, I mean, some people will tell you that maybe your I finished from in the Nigerian university, so you gotta have this belief system that if you can survive Nigeria educational system, you can survive anywhere. But the truth is that we think our education system is complex. In fact, it's the easiest, if I'm not mistaken, because yeah, it is seriously hard, seriously hard. Like the undergrad put in a lot of work. The undergrad studies super hard, right? And sometimes I also take some undergrad courses, so I know how hard those courses are, right? It's not true. It's not true. So it's the only thing that can make you survive. Why I say that you even if you I mean, but why we always feel that if you survive in Nigeria, you can survive elsewhere is that by the time you always remember where you came from, like you remember the hardship you went through. So no matter what you go through, you would be able to push through, right? Like it's not that you'll find it easy, you find it very tough. Um, so I think let me just quickly wrap up my aim three. I'm in the last part. Um, yeah, but so you can keep dropping your questions and answer them. Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about like the top tricks for statement of purpose and personal statements. These are the questions I consider like kind of germane for statement of purpose. Uh, the first question is why you're interested in grad school. They want to know why you're interested in grad school in the first place. So let me paint a scenario here. This is what I've observed. Uh, no, motivation can can differ, right? Typically in the US, for example, an average US citizen is not really interested in grad school, right? Um, why I said that kind of generalizing statement, which can be fallacious, is that once you're done with your bachelor's, right, you can make a very good living, right? Grad school students are paid the smallest amount of money. Like, in fact, in the poverty level in the United States, they are not too far above the poverty level. Do you get it? Like the United States have like a ranking for poverty level. So they are around like 200% above or 200% above the poverty level or that close, right? So somebody, if you finish your bachelor's and you go to the industry, you are earning more times, like multiple times somebody in the grad school. Okay, so you can see that whenever you, for me, what I've experienced, whenever I see a U.S. citizen that decides to go for grad school, they are very serious about it. They are very passionate about it. It's about passion for them because they have other alternatives. If it's about money, they have other alternatives to making money. If it's about having a good life, they have other alternatives. But for them, it's all about passion. It's all about interest. They are ready to. That's why, I mean, for me, from experience, I see them like 7:30 a.m. They are in the lab working. They are very efficient. I mean, I now understand why they are paid per hour. Like companies pay people per hours. I'm not about grad school now. I'm talking about like a typical system. It's because they are very efficient in what they do. They look at the, the work. So you see them like in the lab, they're working like once it's 5 p.m. or 6 p.m., they work throughout that period. Once it's 5 p.m., they go home. Like they're done, or 6 p.m., they're done. Right? It might not be the case for most people, but the ones I've seen, like there's this high level of passion. So the program also requires that same level of passion and commitment from you. So if you are in the game not for commitment and passion, this is not for you, please, because it will become a living hell. A living hell. I'm telling you, a living hell. Um, but if you are passionate about it, you'll be able to, survive, right? So that's why they are really checking if you are passionate about it, because it is passion that will take you through the process, right? If you don't have the passion, if you don't have the passion, they are just bringing you to come and suffer. I'm telling you, because I mean, there are nights that I've come back home very crazy. I'm like, gosh, do I want to do this program again? But the only thing that keeps me going is that I'm passionate about it. I love my research. I love my research. I'm always saying I love my research. But guy, I'm getting, let me put it in some in local language. Like, it's not easy, guy. you know. No be how do we say it in Nigerian pidgin? No be no be chicken, no be moi moi. It's not a moi moi thing. So you have to really show why you're interested in grad school. You have to show them that it's passion driven, and you have to show them why you are going to be successful in grad school. So out of every 100% applicants, only like 50% or 40% end up becoming successful, right? I know people that are in the same school that, that have dropped out, they have mastered out of the PhD, which is not a bad thing. It's just that it requires so much from you. Sometimes it requires you cutting off so many networks because you're not able to keep up with you're not able to keep up with communicating with people again in Nigeria or in your home country because of time commitment. Like, is a lot. But thankfully, there are a lot of communities that help you um, stay alive, right? I use that word stay alive importantly. So even if you are checking for schools, always check that they have a very strong community that can help you stay alive. Okay, then they also want to check why this program is best fit for you. So the program might be good, but not good for you. Right? Please take note. So don't. So if you are admitted, don't think they admit you because I mean don't feel like they are doing you a favor. You are the one doing them a favor. Always feel like that. So because you're coming there to work, you're coming there to do your research, right? So you're not doing so you have seen that oh you will be able to get the job done. So you are there to do them the favor. So always think from that perspective. Um, so okay, let me enlarge this and yeah, let me drink more water. Okay, I'll try to wrap up in the next 10 minutes. Then we'll go to some final Q&A questions. So I'm trying to make sure that this session is like an all-in-one session, which is kind of difficult to do. So what are the tips for writing an SOP, statement of purpose? Um, yeah, I'll answer the question you also now, please. Let me go through the SOP tricks. Uh, so there are different ways to approach SOPs. You know, but you should know what are the fundamental questions, right? So it's all about questions. Ask yourself, what are they trying to get from my SOP, right? I've told you the thing they're trying to get. Let me go back to this. Um, they're trying to get that if you're interested in it and if you're going to be successful in it and if the program they have is the best for you, right? So, uh, so for me, I have like a 5 to 7 kind of paragraph approach to it, um, which you may not necessarily have to follow, right? So it's all about your story, right? Um, so I made a post on LinkedIn that I think I've made 2 other posts on SOP, right? Or 3 other posts on SOP. You can check them. So for this pattern, which you don't necessarily have to follow, I just want you to get a flavor of what your SOP should talk about. So I said like the paragraph one, start strong, like kick off with a compelling story or facts, like set the tone and grab the reader's attention immediately. Um, so what your first paragraph should talk about is like what sparked your interest. Um, so let's say you are interested in a particular program, in a particular problem you're trying to solve. You know, everybody's trying to solve a problem anyway. So what sparked that interest in that problem? Is it try to make it personal, not overly personal? You can see that I did not say, oh, right from 5 years old, I knew that I want to do a PhD. Don't say that story, please. I have always been dreaming of becoming a PhD student. I've always been dreaming of studying MIT. I've always, please keep those stories to yourself. Nobody cares about your dream. Nobody cares about your childhood dreams, your childhood interests. No, they care about there's a problem. Can you solve it? Do you have what it takes to solve the problem? Right? So talk about most times it's always good to talk about maybe an interest, maybe a problem, a situation that needs to be solved. I kind of recommend using a what's it called? I'm trying to remember the name, a star approach. So a star approach is you have situation, task, um, action and response or reaction, right? So the situation is like, let's say you there's like air pollution, let's say in this case, according to UNICEF, 60% increase in death in Africa caused by air pollution between 1990 and 2017. Context mentioned the existing work in the field. Um, So let's say that in this case now, like the air pollution, like you grew up in a particular community and you've seen this air pollution like firsthand, like you're trying to um, personalize the experience, right? But I because most times, right, the reason why you need to personalize the experience is that if your passion is driven from a personal experience, no matter how difficult the PhD programs goes, you'll be able to, push further because the PhD program will eat you hard, right? But because you are passionate about this problem, you will not see it as a challenge. You will not see it as a problem. And I'm talking about the PhD program as a problem. You'll see the PhD program as a tool towards solving a problem that you're passionate about. Okay. Um, yeah. So mention the existing field. Clearly state why you're pursuing this PhD and the institution. So when I talk about mention the existing work in the field, like talk a little bit about what work has been done in that problem. So don't just talk about the problem. Like you're not the first person to notice this problem. People have noticed that problem. So why is it now interested to you all of a sudden? Like, oh, people have solved this problem. They have tried solving this problem through this way and this way. However, you feel that there are some missing areas. They're trying to show some research gap, right? Okay, some areas that you feel that can be resolved. Blah blah blah. It's like a very quick summary. You're not doing an article. You're not writing a publication. So please take note that if you say any word that is not from your head, you have to cite it. So, and again, you have to try to ensure that you don't have too many citations. So, one or two citations is enough, right? Like when I use this part, I cited it with a footnote, but I not just put it in this post. So the next thing in paragraph two, talk about okay, your academic journey. Talk about like your um what led to like the antecedents to that interest, like how did you develop that interest all of a sudden, right? So like can talk about like the coursework you took. Maybe you listen to the news, you're just interested in this particular news. Maybe you did some coursework that exposed your mind, or maybe you went for a trip that exposed your mind to this, or maybe you went to a particular bank and this bank treated you like this and that motivated you, or maybe you noticed a gap somewhere, whatever it is, right? But that's kind of related to your academic journey, right? In your bachelor's. Then talk about your master's thesis or your undergraduate thesis, whatever level you are in. Um, so for when you talk about your thesis, we're not interested in the title of your thesis, your undergraduate thesis. So don't talk about the title, right? Talk about what led you to choose that thesis. Like talk like a scientist. What led you to that thesis? What how did you approach the thesis? What did you do? Like maybe you saw that people have been trying to solve the issue of biofuel, but they were using you know uh, single functional catalyst, right? And you find out that you can use bifunctional, right? And so they talk about okay, this is what I did. I used it, this. This is my outcome, right? And while doing this, I use these techniques, these techniques. And I feel that for my PhD level, these techniques can be applicable. So while doing this PhD, I mean, what I've learned from this program is that I've learned like maybe how to draft uh, research questions, how to find the best tools to use and all those stuff. So kind of linking it. So you're not writing a cover letter. A cover letter is where you write all you have done, your achievements. SOP is not a cover letter. That's where people mistake it. SOP is trying to tell them you can fit into the PhD program. So you're not trying to showboat. You're trying to tell them the things that you think, the tools or the mindset, the skills, or whatever you feel that can relate to that program, right? So whenever I talk about your thesis, try to relate it to okay, oh, these are the experience I've gathered. I feel like I can relate to my PhD program or to my master's program if you're doing a research master's. Okay. Then maybe paragraph four, you can showcase your research experience after your undergrad, right? So after you finish your undergrad, what did you do? Well, did you just all of a sudden forget about it? Like, what other research did you do? Did you work as a research assistant for somebody? Um, Whatever it is that you found that you were able to do. Then talk about the program, talk about the faculties that interest you. Talk about maybe a particular researcher that you want to work with, and talk about what relate I mean, what relation you guys have that you want to explore. Then paragraph 6 is talk about your extracurricular. I did not put it here because of LinkedIn requirements. You don't want to overload the story. I mean, like there are word limitations. So paragraph 6 can now be like your extracurricular activities that you did, maybe your leadership experience, very succinct, right? Paragraph 7, you can now be like, oh, I think I have everything it takes to be admitted into this program, and this is my long-term goal. This is what I want to achieve. This is my short-term goal, and all those stuff. So that's like a typical way for SOP. Please take note that you can always tweak it to whatever suits your style, right? But make sure that you are answering the questions that the school gave you. Also, please take note that some schools give out a prompt. So if the school gave out the prompt for the SOP, please strictly follow the prompt. And also, if they give like the number of word limitation, strictly follow the word limitations, right? Once you disobey the rules, no matter how good your application is, you're cancelled. Taking of that. So there are some writing samples. This one refers to, okay, Peter Randolph. Yeah, so writing samples refer to the fact that, let's say that you cannot publish in a journal, right? Right. You could, convert your undergraduate thesis, provided that you did something that makes sense, right? Convert your undergraduate thesis into an article and then submit it to an open journal, right? So all these are preprints. So why am I saying this is that you know for some journals you have to pay a lot of money and you might not have that money to do that. And some you really have to maybe do it in collaboration with a professor or something like that. Or some maybe so I mean depending on your background, maybe in the commercial right or whatever field you're in, you can always submit writing samples to uh, these preprint repositories. So if you go to this link, this Wikipedia, just search for list of preprint repositories. It will show you this Wikipedia page. Go to your own field and send an article to them that you have written. Why do you need to do that? Is that I mean you're not. I mean the reason why schools want to see a publication record or see writing samples is not really because of the research you published. It's just to confirm if you know what it takes to write a paper. Do you have what it takes to write a paper? Do you have what it takes to write a publication? Right? The only way you can tell them, you can't tell them with mouth, I have what it takes to write a paper. The only way you can explain to them that you have what it takes is by showing them proof that you have submitted writing samples. So, I mean, it can be, if you have publication, good for you. If you have publication, come up with maybe a review paper. Make sure it's very good, right? Because people will read it anyway. Make sure it's very good. But instead of going through the long route of getting your paper published, you can submit a repository, right? So what am I trying to say is that your writing samples matters. So if, for example, you were given a project to do in school, and you do the project very well, right? It might not be a publication, right? You can still include it, although you're not submitting it to a journal. You can still include it maybe in your Google Drive and just talk a little bit about it. So under your profile, your CV, you can have a position for writing samples, right? So that would be really good. So just to show that, so no, we're looking at how you can optimize your profile. So in case you have publication, but you have to have a writing sample, like at least things that shows that you write. Okay, let me push a little into letters of recommendation. So for recommendation, please, there are people that will recommend like your okay. I think I should have shown this in my slide form. The funny thing is that if you see the slide I made for this, is the transitions are really good, but I just say post, let me just show the PDF version. Okay, um, but it's fine. It's fine. Okay, let's go back to my PDF. Yeah, so Who can write your letter of recommendation? Your professors can write it, lab technologies, people that have like, I mean, people that you have a very good rapport with. It's not somebody that you never had any experience with. So if you're an undergrad, good for you. Like your listening section at your undergraduate level is very good for you, which I really appreciate what NSChE UNIBEN is doing. So this is the best time for you to build a very strong relationship with your faculty, with your professors, with your lecturers, because they can only speak volume about the things you have in common, right? But if there is nothing drawing you guys together, like maybe the only thing that draws both of you together is the fact that you did their course, that cannot serve as a very good or strong letter of recommendation. So if the professor, maybe you you took his coursework, you did research with him or her, then the person can write a good letter of recommendation for you because you have worked with the person as a research assistant, or maybe he or she was your supervisor, right? Lab technologies in the sense that maybe the person you was the person I mean the person was your supervisor in terms of in the lab, like you saw what you were doing in the lab. So the technologists can talk about um, how good you are with your lab experience, how committed you are to lab work, what you bring to the table, how helpful you are to your other colleagues who might be experiencing lab issues, like are you ready to share your knowledge with other people, you know. And for those who are in the industry and your industry work kind of relate to your research, maybe they can talk about your how attentive to details you are, how committed you are, how different things, right? So, but make sure that you have. If a school asks you for three recommenders, make sure you have the first two can be professors, and the last person be maybe a technologist or academic supervisor or your workplace supervisor. Um, if the school asks for two and you cannot get the two from a professor, and you feel that, or maybe you feel that those two, only one professor is, I mean, you only have a very strong relationship with just one of the professors. You don't have a strong relationship with the other person. I'll just recommend maybe a professor and the other person that you have a very good experience, maybe a lab technologist or a workplace supervisor. So, but take note that you would have to make a recommendation draft. Please never make a mistake of telling somebody to write a recommendation for you without sending a draft to the person. Now, why am I saying this is that the draft is not for the person to submit on your behalf. The draft is to help the person write a better recommendation for you. Reason being that you will also observe that writing a recommendation letter for yourself is very hard because you will spend hours, if not days, if not weeks, trying to come up with a very good recommendation letter for yourself with that professor because you're trying to look for a common ground. And these guys have a very busy job. They have a busy family life. They have a busy academic life. You can't expect somebody to spend 2 hours or 3 hours trying to draft a recommendation letter for you. So what will they do? They will just go to I cannot forget. I remember there's a professor, I will not mention the name. She told me, "Oh Peter, this person requested a letter of recommendation. Do you know what? Just let me check this my folder. Um there's this draft I usually send for every my recommenders. Okay, so I see the draft. Okay, so just change the name, change the first name, put this name, put that name, put that name, put that. Okay, so anywhere I see the other person's name, I just change the name, I just submit it, and then I saw the place about they asked about all the some questionnaires. I don't really know the student too much. Peter, just put this one, put this one, put this one. Like in my mind, I just said in my mind, this person can never write a recommendation letter for me, right? Um, so that's the way how bad it is. And that recommendation letter, even if you have a very good profile, that recommendation letter will write you off. So it's very important, right? Make sure you're looking for people that you can send a draft to. Not that they will send that draft, right? They are not to send the draft. At least that will help them write a very good thing because you have taken your time to do the hardest part of the writing process. Please take note of that. I think that's basically all I have. Because yeah, I think that's it. So your recommendation letter should show your academic performance, your potential in the research field, your intellectual capabilities, your personal qualities, personal accomplishments, your leadership and extracurricular. So the reason why I said you should come up with a draft is that you cannot afford a generic statement. It has to be very specific to you and have a common ground between you and the person. Okay. So I think that's basically it. So in the end, which university you attend is not as important as the work you work, as the person you work with. If you're going for a PhD, this is germane. This is like the most important thing. I mean, the reason why I have not stepped out of my PhD or mastered out is because I have fantastic advisors who have been very, very supportive. I'm grateful to God for having them as my advisors. They have seen me in my messy situation and they've been able to accommodate me for who I am and giving me every support I need. If you don't have that support network, like if your first critic is your advisor and not your support system, please look for another advisor. Like, just know you're in for a mess. Um, but if you are blessed to have a very good advisor, your PhD will it'll be difficult anyway, like normally, but you'll be able to survive it. So it's very, very important. Thank you. So those are the resources I used. Peterson says volume guide, guided admission essays, a field guide to grad school. I have the hard copy of this book. It's a very good book. Petersons.com, grad school, grad cafe, education USA, because I'm an education USA OFP scholar. So most of the stuff I'm teaching are things I have learned from their boot camp, also from mentors. One of the mentors is Dr. Andrew Amenagawon. Um, so since this program is hosted by the National Nigeria Society of Chemical Engineers, University of Benin, so it's like a big shout out to Dr. Andrew Amenaga, currently professor, right? Amenaga, who kind of mentored me a lot in this process, and I'm grateful to him. And also talking about Dr. Or Professor, if I'm not mistaken, I think Professor, um, her name just skipped my head. The previous HOD before, after Dr. Andrew, before, I mean, like after Dr. Andrew, the next HOD of the department, her name skipped my head, before Dr. Kiera. So these people have been very fantastic. So thank you. I can take the questions. So Anita, yeah, I don't know if do you see the questions?
Sorry, what did you say?
I don't know. Do you see the questions from your end?
Yeah, I saw the questions. I can see the questions that people asked.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think I did 2 hours on dot.
Okay. Well, I don't know if anyone else has a question, but please, if you have a question, feel free to ask about anything discussed today.
Okay. So let me answer some questions that were dropped. So many thanks for the lesson, sir. I understand applying for this funded program isn't easy. How long realistically can a person keep applying till they get a response or an interview at least? Uh, for some, it's like, I mean, it depends on what you're doing differently, right? So typically, if you're applying to grad school, it takes like a 2 year, like a 1 year kind of application process. Like, so for example, if you're applying for fall 2025, you would have started preparing your packages from last year, not this year, right? Is to tell you how long it takes. So typically, it takes like 2 years to plan. So, for, so, uh, so currently, if you're just finishing school or you're about, let's say you want to, I mean, like I won't recommend someone to apply for fall 2025 now if you have not even started at all. But you can give it a good shot, right? Just try your best based on this information I'm given, because you need to put in a lot of work. Uh, because you might need to take some tests if need be, although there are a lot of waivers for tests now. Um, but so I can come up with a very good profile. So how long does it take? Does not. Uh, so, but I mean, for the application cycle, so if you would be admitted to a school, it's like 6 months before the school resumption. 6 months. So if you apply for fall, so in the US you have fall and spring. If I apply for fall season, which is usually around August, you will receive offer of admission around at most March, April, like 6 months before August, right? Yeah. So, but around December, January, February, you start getting some interview requests. So not all schools require interview. And interviews differ. There are interview with admission committee, interview with the faculty, depending on the kind of interview you're giving. Um, yeah, that's basically it. That's if you are seeking for fully funded programs anyway. That's where the household is. But if you have the money, if your parents are very rich, uh, then you can just fund it, which is ridiculously expensive. Uh, Studying in the US or in Europe also, in the UK is very expensive. So you can try out some. If you're just interested in masters, uh, you can just try out, some masters focused kind of scholarship applications, like Mastercard, Erasmus Mundus. I have friends who are Erasmus Mundus scholars, Commonwealth, Gate Cambridge, um, which other one again? So a lot of master's focus program, Chevening scholarship. Although some of those scholarship can come with some clause that you have to come back to Nigeria or come back to your home country for 1 year before you can leave. Um, but yes, so our jobs readily available after pursuing master degree there. But I don't know if you heard when I said that even if you have a bachelor's, you can get jobs. So people that go for masters, and PhDs, like they're trying to push further, but readily available can be relative, right? Can depend on what your background is, what kind of degree did you have, like not just master's degree, like master's degree in what environment are you in? Those are the things that factors in. Like when I was applying to the US for my school, I considered areas that had a lot of biotech in that environment. For example, in New York, um, you have Massachusetts, which is not far from us. Like Boston is where you have a lot of biofarmers, the big farmers. Like there are a lot of them there. So it's like a very close up. So I chose a school that has those companies not too far fetched from me. So those are the things you factor in. So, for example, if you're interested in a particular research, and the only company that has that research being done is like 20 states ahead of, even though it's just two states. Like America is very big, for example. So uh, to get internship can be difficult because they are not just thinking about the fact that you can do the job; they also consider relocation. So if you are staying very far from where they are, you might not even get the job in the first place. That's after you have done your master's degree. Uh, that's for internship because internship prepares you for getting the job. But if you are not if you are not restricted by relocation, if you don't mind relocating, you can get a job anywhere, right? But in the US again, it's not just about getting job. You can get a job that pays high, but after you pay all your expenses, you have peanuts. Especially an example of those areas is California. It's crazily expensive in California. If I mean the salaries are very high, but the salary does not really tell your take home because by the time you move your expenses, uh, you have only a little to take home. But jobs are readily available, but it's very competitive. And yeah, that's just basically it. So it also matters the school you finish from and how well you can present yourself because yeah, you don't do job tests or job exams like people do. It's just how well you can present yourself. That's all about it. Yeah. So can we have? Do you have any other question? I don't know if I have. Let me check. My phone just went off, so I can't see any question here. Uh, okay, I think I have a question. Thank you for the injustice to the. Thank you, Samuel. Considering application for admission versus application for scholarship, which one should come first? Yeah, I think this is a very very good question that people misconstrue, like they misinterpret it. If you're applying to a school, you are not necessarily applying for scholarship, right? In fact, some people send cold email to an advisor and are saying they are funding your lab. Like, what concerns you if I have funding or not? Like, it's not you're not my employee that my employer that I should tell you if I have funding or not. Um, so if you're applying for a program, you just apply, right? So it's now left for the school to decide if they have funding to grant you scholarship, right? So in the US specifically, all PhD programs are funded by the school, whether it is part funding or a full funding. But there is no case of zero funding, right? There's always a funding from the school, whether it is part or zero or full funding, right? Um, so the funding comes with a commensurate work requirements, right? Either you're going to work as a research assistant or you're going to work as a teaching assistant, except you get fellowships, which is good. So I was privileged to begin my first year with a fellowship, and currently my next 2 years is also with fellowship. So I've been privileged to have that. So fellowship saves you from the work requirement. So you're just doing your research. You're working, but the work you're doing is just your research, right? But if you're not under fellowship, you'll be doing your research obviously if you're a research assistant, but it will be heavily driven by the demands from your advisor because you're a worker. You're working. You have hours to do. So you're studying, work, and study. Um, if it's a teaching assistant, you also have requirement to teach, right? So that's basically. I don't know if I did justice to your question. Um, yeah. So you're applying for admission. So the scholarship comes in as like a piggyback. It just like it goes flow hand in hand. Except you are applying for a fellowship program or a scholar is specifically so for example if you're applying for MasterCard Foundation, yeah, that in that case you are not applying for admission, you're applying for a scholarship, right? But that MasterCard scholarship will be linked to a particular school. So they will tell you apply to the scholarship and apply to the school, right? So if you can get the scholarship but not get admitted to the school, or you can get admitted to the school but not get a scholarship, right? That's a different case scenario, right? But if you're applying to the school now, if you're going straight, like we have different kind of funding, right? This is another. I've had another session with somebody. I think I'm not sure if I have a recording of that session. I should have a recording of that session, yeah. Where I talked about different fundings that are available for different programs. So funding is a very long discussion. Like we can talk about, we have internal funding, external funding, right? And we have funding at different levels of your program. If you're going for a PhD, we have pre-doctoral funding, we have your doctoral funding, and we have your postdoc. Like when the year you are finishing your program, that terminal doctorate level. So there are different areas there. Okay, I don't know if I have any other question. I would like to wrap up the session the next 7 minutes. So Anita, and if you're, thank you so much. I don't know if you have any question for me or any other comments.
Yeah,
Mr.
no,
Peter, good evening once again.
Yeah, good evening, Anifia.
I would also like to say a very big thank you for being here with us and walking us through these various steps. I'm very appreciative, really, because I've learned a lot personally, and I believe every other person that also joined in has learned a thing or two. So, but I think some people are also having a bit of network connectivity, so their question can pop up on the screen. So, if you give me a minute or two, I will just ask from the local audience if they have any, so I can just channel them to you. That'll be fine.
Yeah, good. I mean, I have my LinkedIn showing here. Although I mean, these days I am very busy. I rarely reply. I reply in messages. I try to because I know what it feels not to feel replied to. Um, but sometimes people ask some very very weird questions. That so most times, thankfully, this session is recorded. That's why I took out that time to make sure it's recorded both on LinkedIn Live and YouTube Live. So people could always visit it in case they have network glitch. Okay, but they can always send me a message via LinkedIn or via email. But I prefer LinkedIn because X I'm not say I mean you can also follow me on X, but I'm not that very active on X, but I'm very active on LinkedIn. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. I
Yeah.
think the young lady that had the question, I've gotten a question answered. I think that was Faustina. She was having issue getting the question across. So yeah, I think we.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. I don't know. I can't find any other question here. Trying to see if but maybe perhaps I missed any question. Uh, but I can't see any other question. Doesn't mean I've answered every question that people may have. Um, maybe I think so,
I
right?
guess so. Yeah.
Okay. So I really appreciate the leadership of NSCHE for organizing the session. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for making time to make the slides and talk to us. We also appreciate it at NSChE UNIBEN also.
Great.
So, so I think we've come to the end of the program. So thank you all the audience for staying with us this far and listening and learning. Yeah, I really appreciate your presence. It means a lot to myself also that you guys keep come here and learn with me. Mr. Peter, I don't think I have more than enough thank yous to say to you, but I really, really, really appreciate you coming. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.